Hey everyone, it's Midnight Spectre here with a few stories and experiences from high school. I hated high school. It was probably the worst 4 years of my life. Now, a little backstory. I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian household, but I went to public school up until high school. Now, the area I went to school at was also pretty traditional as well, and I was a pretty sheltered kid, but the high school I would have gone to if I had gone to continue going to public school was in a bad area, and the bad area school sending their kids there. My parents didn't really want me going to that school, so they made me go to a Catholic college prep high school, and I wasn't really stoked about this because I thought I'd be going to church like every day of the week, and I remember people from my church were super excited I was going to school, but a lot of them were saying, don't let them change you, which I thought was really weird, but I learned that Catholics and Protestants don't really agree with the practices of how each of them celebrate their religion. One of the many reasons I got fed up with religion, just said, fuck it, I'm doing my own thing, and playing video games and eating chips until I pass out. So, one of the huge things that most Catholics and Protestants butt heads on is homosexuality. Before the new Pope, being homosexual was one of those things, as long as you didn't mention it, you said you were alright, and it seemed kind of up to interpretation to most people. And I guess it was okay for a period, but when the new Pope came in, he made a blanket statement saying that homosexuality is not a sin, but you must remain celibate in your relationship. This was honestly a huge deal to me because I was starting to grapple with the terms of my sexuality. I had honestly acted my whole entire life that I was interested in the opposite sex, but when I was alone and thinking about it deeply, I realized the opposite gender wasn't really my bag. And being in a fundamentalist Christian household, most of my friends who were in the church fully believed that homosexuality is a huge sin and you'd be cast down to hell to burn forever. So, yeah, I was pretty scared. This is only made worse by our sex ed assembly, either freshman or sophomore year of high school. Now, sex ed in high school was basically no actual useful health information, but mostly just abstain from sex until marriage. One of them was held in the chapel where we all sat down and there were some girls standing around paper hearts in their hands and two boys with paper hearts of their own. So one boy was supposed to be doing everything wrong, having sex with multiple partners before marriage and so on and so forth. So he went to each girl and they'd crumple up his heart and tear a piece of his heart off and tear a piece of their heart off, and they would staple the pieces to each other's hearts. So at the end of this exercise, the boy who did everything wrong had this mismatch of different colors and pieces of paper. So the boy doing everything right, he went around and abstained from sex from each of these women, and each girl would take his heart and crumple it up and tear it a bit, but otherwise leave it whole until he found the one and married her, and they stapled their two hearts together. At the end of both exercises, they both held up the hearts and asked us which one of them would you rather have. They emphasized the importance of abstaining from sex, saying that if you have sex with multiple partners or sex in general before marriage, you'll never be whole for your significant other. That's it, guys. You aren't going to talk about STDs, having safe sex, pregnancy, or any of those other issues? Well, another sex ed assembly we had was this dude who I'm going to say looked like he just hopped out of his vehicle after recording a bad political or social hot take for Facebook. And he looked all around us from his spot in the middle of the gymnasium at all of us in the bleachers like he was a wrestler or something, expecting us to jump out of the seats and try and fight him. And he proceeded to give the worst social hot take ever. It was a full hour and a half of him telling that if we ever thought about the same gender, we're going to burn in hell for eternity, and no one will love us, and how wrong and disgusting we were. I was in shock, mostly because I had lost a lot of trust and faith in people in that day, honestly. And his take was even more extreme to my upbringing, because when I was little, people in the church would hear about prominent actors coming in gay, and they would say, I hope they get better and find God again. This basically was saying there's no salvation even if you didn't even act upon any of those desires, quote unquote, as they called it. Of course, there were a bunch of shooken up kids at the end of the assembly, and I don't know why no one stopped them, because all the teachers are standing around there just watching him do this. Though the year after the new Pope came in and said that homosexuality was okay, we had a new, more quote unquote progressive person now come in and crack jokes about being gay. For example, he had one joke where he was talking about some sort of car commercial where a woman was driving in some car, and the tagline was like, drive what turns you on, or something to that effect. And he laughed, and he said, well, I always imagine my truck as a dude, so if I imagined it turning me on with a hey baby, I'd be a little creeped out. Of course, that got a laugh out of most of the audience, but I still found it to be quite insensitive. Of course, No surprise that the whole assembly didn't really touch on any of the topics related to our bodies or how we were growing and changing. I still have no idea how our bodies work, and honestly at this point I'm too afraid to ask. Another weird thing about our high school is that maybe it's more common than I actually thought, but we got drug tested. It was supposedly every quarter, but I often got pulled into the office to be drug tested maybe 2 or 3 times a quarter. Because I was a weird kid, of course, and you never knew, which I guess would defeat the purpose of drug testing. So you'd be in class and the office would call you down to the office and say, please send midnight to the nurse's office. And of course, everyone would know what that meant. Only good part of it is that you get excused from class for at least 20 minutes or so to sit in the air-conditioned nurse's office, whereas nurse looked like she'd walked out of the 50s or perhaps a horror movie set in an old hospital that would come out with a pair of scissors and cut off a piece of your hair and submit it for drug testing. They were super worried about drugs there to the point where if a kid came to school with a knife, an administration would be like, yeah, that's alright, but heaven forbid you came in with a lighter. Automatic 2-week suspension. There was one kid who was the quote-unquote Mr. Fix-It of the school who just disappeared for 2 weeks, and when he came back, everyone asked, where were you? And he said he got suspended for 2 weeks because he had a lighter in his tool bags. So the kids who were smoking age would chew tobacco, and after school the parking lot would be littered with bottles of dip, usually uncapped, so I'd always end up kicking one over and creating a putrid puddle of dip spit and spent tobacco. We also had mandatory fundraising for the school, which was pretty lame, and even more lame by the fact we never saw any improvements to the school, like, a whole building AC unit, or Windows units for the classroom, something like that. New computers, or anything. Honestly, I don't know where the money went. I wouldn't be surprised if one day I'm just sitting down my computer or hunting for plushies and my parents call or text me with news of some huge scandal saying that the school had been stealing money from the students for years using this fundraiser. Now, what we did have to sell for the fundraiser? Cookies, chocolates, snacks, gift baskets? Nope, none of that. Calendars. Something most people don't even own anymore, since at the time most people were getting smartphones that already had them. So if they need to remember an important date, they just put in their calendar app or on their phone. They try to justify these calendars as sort of a lottery ticket, where whoever bought the calendar would get a chance to win like $100 or something throughout the year. Now these calendars are $25 for one of these wastes of paper. And we had to sell 6 every year. Otherwise we were on the hook for the outstanding amount, and what we didn't sell they'd take back from us. Luckily my parents saw the stupidity in this, and we just bought all 6 calendars and gave them to family members. I guess later on they realized they had to explain where this money was going somehow, and eventually started giving full ride scholarships to kids who would have gone to high school in the bad area, which really pissed off my parents because they had sacrificed to send me there. And one time we were dealing with the death of one of my grandparents, and we had missed the payment, and they pulled me out of class and made me call my parents to beg them to send the money for the payment for school, which, if any kid happened to be in the office during that phone call, they'd overhear this and make fun of you saying that you're going to get kicked out and head out to the bad high school. I want to thank the people who stuck around this long, and I will entertain you with my last 2 stories. So we had our classes picked out for us, and we prayed that we got to one of the good teachers, because if we had the bad teachers, our parents would have to call and complain to the school in order for us to switch classes in our schedules. I had gotten a brand new teacher for one of my science classes, and no one really knew much about her. I like science because one of my favorite subjects up until this moment. Now, a bad teacher can make the subject you're passionate about look exciting as smeared goose shit, while a good teacher can make a subject that you'd rather end up wither and dying away and make it a great learning experience. I had a batch of amazing math teachers. It turned out mathematics was one of my worst subjects to me, but it ended up turning out to be one of my best subjects after these good math teachers. But this teacher ruined science for me. She'd present the subject in such a dry, straight from the textbook experience that we didn't bother. It didn't really help us at all, and she didn't bother to help any students who were lost in the subject and told them it's in the book. Like, gee whiz, thanks. It's not like your job or anything to take the information from the book and present it to us in a more digestible manner and help those who are struggling with the topic. That's totally not your job at all. She was also a stickler about rules, because one day I went to the hospital for one of my family members, and it was a huge deal. I ended up missing a day of class. For once, the school was cool about something and was like, yeah, your word is fine, but this teacher wanted me to have someone else's record of them being in the hospital to prove that I was there, and instead of just goofing off, or otherwise I would have got detention from her. Isn't that illegal or something? But anyway, I'm not a lawyer, so I told my parents this, and I think they're starting to finally get fed up with the school, because it was the lesser of 2 evils, so we kept paying them and dealing with them, but that teacher got an absolute earful from my parents, though. One time she had to go to the hospital herself, so we were left with the other science teacher who was really good, and we honestly learned more in a week from him than we did the whole entire semester with the other teacher. And when finals came out, however, I started looking through the packet and realized I didn't know half of the stuff in there, and I just answered the funniest or most outrageous answer for each question and submitted my final with a smile, knowing that damn well I was going to fail this final so spectacularly. I probably would end up with an F or a C or something in science, but somehow I ended up with a B that entire year, and I got a whopping 2% of the final. I was amazed that somehow I didn't get grounded or my ass sent to some tutoring program after my parents got my report card. Now, my final story is going to be quite a huge pill to swallow, so if you're not comfortable with talking about or listening to topics about mental health, then I suggest skipping it. This is also kind of my final straw where it comes to people who are supposed to take care of and be there for you. Now, since we were a college prep school, there was a huge push for us to get into college. We were supposed to be applying and visiting colleges and all that stuff. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do because everything I brought up to my parents that I was interested in, they would say there's no money in that or that's dumb. Now, our guidance counselors, for the most part, just wanted to know how you're doing in classes and how many colleges you'd apply to. However, one year we got a new guidance counselor, and he was a young guy, and he seemed pretty nice. I, of course, was afraid of the men at the time, and so when I got him, I was kind of shitting my pants. I don't know why. It's not like he was going to suplex me off the roof or something, but try telling that to me now or me then. But I kind of got this vibe that I could trust him, so I finally let out everything that I was feeling and told him. He was excellent and he listened to me. He was really caring and understanding. Now, schools are generally just rumor mills with no substance, and the hot topic thing at that time was who was gay, since it was pretty taboo to most people, and most kids felt that way too. And the rumor about him was that he was gay. I paid no mind to it though. Well, one day I told him my biggest secret. I loved plushies. It was wildly inappropriate for someone my age according to my parents, and it was like a big family secret, so my room was always off limits to everyone, in case people got to gossiping and it got out. Of course, I was afraid of other people finding out too, but it's something I enjoyed and got a lot of great comfort from. To me, there is no better feeling than holding a giant plush close to you while you slept at night, trusting to protect you from all the horrors of the world. Well, that's when my guidance counselor let me into his secret. He was gay. I told him I heard the rumors, but I didn't believe them. Well, after that, I trusted him with everything. I felt so at home with him, and I enjoyed our time together, and he even gave me a school email so I could email him whenever I needed to talk. Well, one night during spring break, I had a particularly rough patch with my parents, and everything just really hurt, honestly. I tried to even remember in full what it was even about, but the words that were said to me were so hurtful that night, I just couldn't recall them. I would like to, because I'm sure my psychiatrist and current therapist probably could use that information to better help me, but I just can't. Well, I just emailed my guidance counselor about this and cried myself to sleep in Princess Star Sparkle's Maine. Wow, most of my plushies names sound like dollar store brand pony names. Well, one fact is I didn't really take into account that the school can view and monitor all emails of people working there, and well, they found mine and I ended up being called out of class with the scariest and worst possible discussion of my life. I'm sure I cried a lot, and they read my email in full, and it was one of those moments that if there was any sort of trust I had in people, that was gone. It was gone, out the window completely. I didn't feel like I was safe in telling anyone anything anymore, because someone would end up finding out about it. Of course, this was right around the time a child from another school had made national headlines for committing suicide. I mean, nothing in my note even hinted at that possibility, but regardless, I was made to take several psych evals because my parents doctor shopped until they found a doctor who said I was normal. This isn't even the worst of it. I guess this incident and those rumors circling around that he was gay and the school may have found his blog talking about his boyfriend and his fitness endeavors, and they ended up firing that guidance counselor, and I ended up having to switch counselors. Luckily, the lady I saw was very nice, but I couldn't bring myself to trust anybody at that school anymore. I want to thank everybody who stuck around for this long for my stories, and I know I'm not the most concise person on the internet, and there really wasn't much anything of funny in this video, but without darkness, how could we enjoy light? And I want to say all the things have definitely improved, and I found my own insurance now, and I don't have to go to my parents' permission to go and see somebody, or have to find someone who says I'm normal for the sake of saving face, and things have improved somewhat with my relationship with my parents. I don't think I'll ever be that wildly successful person they dreamed of when I was a baby in their arms, but my definition of success differs from theirs. I just want to be happy and comfortable. I mean, most people would love to be wildly wealthy, and I'd like that too, but I'm fine with something small that could live well within my means and still have money to plushie hunt on most weekends. And that'd be brilliant for me. And I've also been opening up with other people as well and beginning to trust people again. So that's all for now, everyone. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video.